Garrison Lee. I overheard something you said about our current president as my wife was listening to an interview you were doing with Karen Pressley. I was surprised that you threw in a barb about Trump, as regardless of Trump's style and personality, etc., it appears Trump is facing and having to deal with a lot of corruption and, quote, professional politicians from both sides, along with a biased and corrupt media who are no longer journalists. There was a swamp in our country that was supposed to be volunteers who came and served and went back to their respective homes and professions. Minimally, the last 4 administrations have just followed the direction of the swamp and their lobbyists. At least Trump has, and is exposing these pro-politicians for what they are. People that have made a business out of a sacred trust to the American people and the media are almost the worst of all the swamp creatures. They seem to enjoy stirring the pot of hate and dissension. Like to hear your thoughts. Hey Garrison, thanks for asking me my opinion on this. I know this is a very, very contentious subject, and I'm fairly unapologetic about the fact that I don't like Donald Trump, and I wish he hadn't gotten into office as the president. I feel that he degrades and demeans the office by his very presence, by the way he speaks and conducts himself, and certainly I don't agree with his politics for the most part. That all being said, I absolutely acknowledge everything you said in your question about the nature of business done in Washington, and I do think it's been going on for a real long time. Politics, historically speaking, is something you could talk about for hours in terms of the corruption that seems to be a natural component of leadership and power. Having power really is where the corruption comes in, because people get drunk with it and they realize that they can hold sway over people's hearts and minds, and they lose sight of whatever purpose they might have had in getting into politics in the first place. Now we've come to a situation in America where, and pretty much all countries around the world, I don't think America is singled out in this, but we've come to a situation where the system itself is bigger than any one person who's going to be able to reform it or fix it. It really takes all of us. And I think a first step of that is having an awareness of it. You have an awareness of it by, what you said in your question, and you think Donald Trump is the solution to that, whereas I feel that Donald Trump is merely continuing that problem. But I don't disagree. I think we both have common ground on the fact that there is a problem, and a huge one. I've been accused of being too leftist and being pro-Democrat or something, and I think at this point I've made it clear that I'm not. I don't like the DNC any more than I like the GOP. And I don't think that the DNC is doing any kind of good job, and hasn't in decades, at representing what I used to think was a progressive, liberal, good platform that was, good for the workers, good for people, and did a lot of good. The history of it, you can go back. You can go pre-United States, you can go Greece, you can go Rome. You can take it all the way back. I think it's interesting how if you go back to old Senate records from the Roman Republic, you will see them debate, from what you can find, what's written, you'll find that they were debating the same kind of things in the same kind of way that we are now here in our Senate, right? Or in our Congress. I think groups of people just kind of get together and kind of maybe like destructive cults. From one destructive cult to the next, you're going to have similarities, you're going to have commonalities. In fact, you find they all operate off of the cult leader's playbook. And I think in politics and in nation building and nation leading, nation governing, you have the same characteristics come up again and again from one government to the next, and corruption is one of those things. I think also that you're right that there are corrupt or ill-advised activities occurring in the media. But I think that this fake news moniker that flies around is dangerous because it endangers our First Amendment. And I think that is not a good thing to be throwing around. Simply because you disagree with something that's written in the media doesn't mean it's fake. Something because, this is Scientology tactics, right? Just because I criticize Scientology, I'm fake news as far as they're concerned, right? I'm evil, I'm horrible, I'm a bad person. Well, I'm not. I'm telling the truth about Scientology. Scientology doesn't like that. And therefore, their counter to that is, rather than deal with what I'm saying and take it on a rational level of, okay, let's have a conversation about these abuses, let's have a conversation about how Scientology's rules might be causing people to act in a destructive fashion. That is no part of the conversation on the part of the Church of Scientology. Well, when a news story comes out that is critical of the president, Congress, whatever, and their response is to attack the person who's saying what they're saying rather than the substance of what they're saying, you immediately should realize that that attack on that individual is, one, not justified, and two, is a distraction. It's not a response. It's not a logical response to that news story. And we, as citizens, need to be aware of these nuances and these distinctions, because if we are not, then we're the ones who lose, because then we become part of the problem of us versus them, of black and white thinking, where Trump is all good or Trump is all bad. Well, Trump is neither one. No politician is all good or all bad. There's almost any politician you can find will have points you can agree with and points you disagree with, and you have to kind of weigh the whole picture as to whether you're going to support this person or they don't agree with you so much that you can't support that person. But it becomes so personal so fast, and the attacks and the rhetoric about it becomes so ridiculous, really, that it's almost impossible to have a rational conversation on the subject at all, which is why I've kind of way backed off from talking about politics at all. But there's one last thing I need to make, one last point I'd like to make on this, and that is, it's been asked, if you were in Germany pre-World War II, what would you do? Right? How would you act? What would you say? What would you do? Right? If you had some idea of what was coming, what would you say and what would you do? As an individual citizen, you really don't have a whole lot of power. You have a voice, and you have the ability to reach people with that voice. And maybe people will listen to you, and maybe they won't. But for your own integrity and your own honesty and for your own self-worth, it's important that you speak your mind. Right? And that's what I do with this channel. And whether people like me doing that or not, or whether people think that what I'm saying is true or not, I would at least ask that they, not get on me about at least expressing my opinion about things, because I feel that the things that I express my opinion about are fairly well considered, and I try to take my time to think through what I'm talking about and why I'm saying the things that I'm saying. And with my own background in Scientology and having studied destructive cults and the characteristics of destructive cults, when I see that behavior mimicked in a political arena and I comment on it, I'm actually trying to help. I'm trying to put something out there that maybe somebody could consider and go, oh, he's got an interesting point about that. Maybe some of these people are acting like cult followers. And this is true for Trump, this is true for Hillary, this is true for Bernie, this is true for any politician. I'm pretty sure if I looked hard enough, I could find people who follow Ted Cruz like little cult members. So it's not like I'm singling somebody out for this. It just so happens that, the office of the president's a fairly important one and a fairly powerful one. And it concerns me when I see cult behavior being demonstrated amongst followers of people who are following Trump. So I say something about it. And I know I'm not going to get, a whole ton of agreement on that by everybody. But I am saying those things because, again, what do you do when you are looking at an uncertain future and maybe you have a voice that you could influence people's, hearts and minds? Do you stay quiet or do you say something? It's been a struggle for me, but I've chosen to say something, and really I tone it down quite a bit compared to how much I could say, and sometimes how much I feel like I should say. So that's my answer on that. But I hope you get that I actually agree with a lot of what you were saying in your question, and I agree that we have a real mess in Washington that we have to deal with, and that these elements, the media and the corrupt politicians and the lobbyists, this is a long-term situation that no one of us is going to solve. But maybe if we get together with enough sense and rationality, we can all tackle it and make it better. So there you go.